Welcome to the FirmWorks Partner Lunch and Learn. This is our second, I think, iteration of this. So thank you for coming, and we'll move on to what we are. So FirmWorks is a company that started by working with consultants and trying to understand exactly the problem points of implementing Salesforce, and really understanding where consultants were having a hard time interacting with the system and what pitfalls they had. And we came up with some products that we thought were very helpful for interacting with some of these common Salesforce problems. We have a geography product that's very lightweight and free, and it allows people to easily interact with some of the basic geocoding data integration rules. We have a notes product because notes, much like files, are equally as horrible to use as files, like I said. And we have our FirmWorks Files product, which we're going to kind of dig into a lot today. So that's who we are. There's three people on our team. I'm the product owner. Jordan Pasusic is our chief innovation officer and our kind of lead developer. And Stephanie Hagan, not related, is our founder and CEO and head salesperson. So you might see any of us in the future, Andrew, if you choose to work with us and interact with the products at all. Any one of us could be someone that you might meet. And then last but definitely not least, I'd like to introduce Sarah Burt. I'll let Sarah introduce herself, but Sarah works for the CRM firm and we work with them a lot.
Thanks, Kyle, and thanks for having us. As Kyle mentioned, my name is Sarah Burt. I'm the Director of Consulting at the CRM firm. We are a Salesforce consulting partner, probably like yourself, Andrew. And we've been partnering with FirmWorks for a little over a year now. We've worked with them, for Kyle and team, to enable our consultants on the three tools that he's mentioned. Specifically, Files has been a product that we've really dug our talons into, as it's really helped streamline our implementations related to the expectations and the limitations, if you will, that Salesforce has as an issue related to our implementations and what we're able or not able to do. So we've been working with them, and I'm here today to talk about some of the implementation constraints that FirmWorks Files has solved for us, some of the time savings, and just how, as consultants, we're constantly looking to build our list of go-to applications we know we can get in and out quickly related to our clients and expectations. And so I'm here to help answer any questions and really brainstorm with you if you have currently had any implementation issues that you're facing, or just in general want to talk about file limitations with Kyle and I.
Yeah, so with the introductions kind of shored up, we kind of reach out to people in the webinars to talk about files. So have you ever interacted with files, Andrew, or do you use them at all, or there's a kind of a new space for you?
Yeah. So my primary issues with files are, I'm sure, the ones that you hear all the time, and that's that the standard sharing architecture doesn't apply, so it's confusing and cumbersome for end users, and that migrating is just a giant pain.
From attachments to files?
Well, no, I mean, with the notes and attachments migrator tool, that's not so bad. It's not great, but it's not so bad. But transferring from one org to another, or from another database into Salesforce.
Yeah, okay.
Primarily from one org to another, though. That's where the real issues seem to be.
Is that, what kind of scenarios do you usually run into, if you don't mind sharing, where you're moving files from one org to another? Is it like rebases, or is it just moving from sandbox to prods, or what kind of situations do you find yourself in?
Yeah, so my experience there has been limited, because usually, with the people that I work with and myself, will write off file migration if it can be done externally by any means. So usually it is from one org to another internally, when an organization is needing to spin up a new org for whatever reason.
Okay. Yeah, I think you've kind of touched on a few of these as well. I mean, the sharing one is one of those things that's not only hard to interact with, but just generally confusing, just because they decided to add additional objects to facilitate sharing of files. And then you get into the whole library structure, and I don't even kind of want to delve into that because it's its own nightmare of architecture. Um, but yeah, so what the common things that we've seen as well are basically interaction with files is really hard. There's not a really good way to like look at them. You always have to click a bunch of times to get to even to a single file, much less see a grouping of files if you're not using libraries, because not everybody really does. And you can't really do anything with files. So you basically upload them and then generally they get forgotten about. Have you ever like worked with any client that's like, yeah, we put them in the system and then we don't really know how to do anything with them, or do you not even get that far usually?
Um, Usually in that sort of scenario, the problem arises when there are different content versions and somebody no longer has access or shared one version and then somebody is trying to access another. That's the main issue that I've run into or clients have.
Has anybody ever asked you to try reporting on the files at all? Because that's another one that's like, nope.
Yeah, no, I just say sorry. You're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, so reporting is kind of non-existent, right?
Yeah, I work with Apsona a bit.
Okay.
I really like their product suite, and so they have some capabilities that are outside of standard Salesforce, but still limited when it comes to files.
Yeah. And I guess the last one we always see is people who want to bulk upload or export files and information. It's like really hard. You're limited to 10 files at a time without writing code. Or like you mentioned, using another app to do it, like Apsona or another ISV partner. So that's always something that's kind of frustrating, is you're like, especially with data migrations, like moving a bunch of files from one org to another, it's very difficult unless you've really worked with data loader a lot or understand the FTP transfer stuff. I guess that's kind of like ATM machine, but the file transfer protocol stuff, or like knowing how you can attach data loader to a local repo to move a bunch of files in and sourcing it. It's kind of, I only learned about it recently. Did you know about any of that stuff?
Yeah, from I've actually been working on um, the sharing certification, and so that's a chunk of it. Generally, because I'm not a developer, if that need arises, then we have to bring in a developer, and so that of
Yeah.
course increases costs.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me show you some stuff that we do with files, and you can see if maybe this applies and ask any more additional questions. While I'm getting that up, Sarah, do you have anything you want to mention, or do you want to talk about what you guys use files for, or anything like that?
I just wanted to actually quickly ask Andrew, is there a specific industry or like type of client that you're working with? Maybe Kyle and I can kind of pinpoint some of our examples leveraging industry terminology or examples, or does your consulting firm work across multiple industries?
Oh,
Oh,
he gone. Oh no. For some reason, he got turned off the ability to talk. Okay.
there he
Should be
is.
back, Andrew.
Sorry, I lost you for a second there. Not sure if you were saying anything, if we were just moving forward.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
I just wanted to quickly ask Andrew, do the consulting firm that you work with, you could primarily consult with a specific type of industry of client? I was thinking maybe Kyle and I could try to emulate industry examples if there's a niche that you work with, or do you work across the board?
Sure. I work primarily with nonprofits,
Oh,
um, and but not exclusively. But yeah, I would say the bulk of my interest would be in relation to nonprofits.
very
Awesome.
cool.
We've done a lot of
Uh,
nonprofit, so that's really great. Sorry, my computer's.
Andrew, what is your role in the consulting, in your consulting organization? What is your role?
I am an admin and an architect. I work directly for clients or work alongside um, Salesforce partners as a third party.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of want to establish some baseline stuff when we talk about FirmWorks files. Um, we kind of our product is really just about implementing components that allow people to see files and interact with files in a more positive way. So right now, as you can see, I'm already kind of getting into like how difficult it is to even interact with a single file. You have to go find it. If it's not attached to a record, it's attached to a record, it's on the related list, which doesn't allow customization at all. If we want to view any details about the file, you got to dig in more clicks and more clicks and more clicks. But one thing we do with clients at the beginning of a FirmWorks kind of implementation, I guess we'll say, or when we're working with clients to figure out if it's a good fit, is understand what they're using files for. Because at some point in the, timeline of your company or the companies of people you work with, you decided that an object wasn't appropriate and a file was more appropriate to use. Both represent data, but sometimes it represents data in a way that's not possible in Salesforce or some other reason. So we try to identify those common threads amongst the files that a company uses in order to allow them to facilitate and allow them to create what we call tags on a file. And a tag is just a field on a content version that we are using to organize files from the components that we have. So as you can see here, we have a lot of tags on the files in our demo org. There's different use cases and different verticals that we have for the different tags as well. So that's kind of an opening activity we do with a lot of folks. And in the nonprofit space, what we've seen a lot of people do is grant applications have been a really big one. So people applying for grants, whether that be in a portal or, whether the internal team is reaching out for applications and working with a grantee for applications. There's a lot of different files that can be associated. I think one of the clients that we helped the CRM firm with had like 14 different files for their grant application portal. Sarah, that's right?
Yeah.
So looking at those files and making sure they're there before we close the grant out, things like that, those will all be tags. Like, is this an approved document? That can be a tag, so you don't have to create a whole other object for an approval if you don't need it, or what type of document it is, or if it's a subtype of document, like is this a tax document, or is this a justice equality document, or maybe even a budget or something like that. Those can all be different tags, because the tags themselves are either going to be, are there any type of Salesforce field, a text field, checkbox, a pick list, you can do dates, whatever you need or the client needs to identify in a file, we can create fields to tag those. And we're talking about a different thing than the Salesforce out of box tag. That's a whole other can of worms we can open, but it's not as easy to use as it seems. I don't know if you've ever messed with that, Andrew, at all, but
no.
Okay.
Not directly. When using Epsona mail merge to create documents, I think that is something that you can write to the fields or that their programming writes to the fields, but not directly.
Yeah, so that's actually a good thing to mention, since you have worked with some docgen/file upload tools before. These fields are just Salesforce fields, which is nice, because any application you're using that creates content versions or generates documents usually can write to these tags, so you can automatically tag something you're generating or uploading, which makes automation of this whole thing we're about to go through a lot easier. Because one of the big things that especially when you're talking about like transitioning to files or from one org to another, is kind of getting everything the way it needs to be, historical files included, and making sure they're tagged the way they want. So the things I'm about to show you next will make a lot more sense. Because once we have the tags in place and the tags are there, we can start utilizing our component library to make files more functional again. So the first thing I always like to show is this is our kind of flagship component of files. Can you see the screen right now? Is it a good size, or should I zoom in, zoom out?
No, it's a good size. Thanks.
Okay, cool. So you'll see right here, we have a component that will show us in a more functional way all the files that are related to this account, Dickinson PLC. On the left-hand side here, you can see, we can filter very easily on the tags that are on those files. We have no SOWs right now, as we can also see by this right-hand report component that I'll talk about in a little bit. We do have an NDA here. We have multiple copies of NDAs, and we can see all these things on the left-hand side that will help us organize the documents. So when we are dealing with, upwards of 10 to 30 documents, you can more easily understand what's there by allowing yourself to filter and view these kind of files based on the fields that they have. Does that concept kind of make sense, as far as a tag is a field and we can mark those things on a file in order to like basically uncover them and organize them?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. So as we kind of walk through here, this is like one of probably our heaviest components because it was, again, our flagship component. So there's a lot of pieces to it. There's different views you can use where if you want to do like a list view with the viewer on the side, you can do that as well. You can show and hide the search panel. More importantly, you can show and hide fields on here. So right now we are looking at a view where it's just the tile view. So you can see a thumbnail of the file itself. If you wanted to see what the title and the type were, you can add those on the fly. This is all cookie based, so it'll be per user. So you never have to worry about someone changing something for everybody. You also can show and hide different aspects of the record. We'll get into public links and entity sharing probably a little later, since that's something that you've mentioned between orgs and, you know, sharing documents out, or at least I mentioned it earlier if you didn't. And then, you know, there's also options for your list view, but this is our flagship, again, to kind of just get the idea of like, you're used to something like this, right? A files related list. It's not very functional. This is kind of our answer to that as far as files go. And even if the files aren't tagged, they'll still show up here. Then you can tag them here as well. So if we uploaded like a brand new file, you can do that. So speaking of uploading files, there's a lot of different ways to do that. There's a global action we have. You can put our button on the page. You can create a button that calls this component. But when you're uploading a file, this is our upload UI. In addition to just uploading the file like Salesforce would, you can now tag it as you upload it, and there's dependencies. So see how this appeared when I clicked SOW. If I go back to NDA, you can see that there's dependent pick lists that are enforced, date fields, notes, what have you. All this stuff is here. In addition to that, with something you were mentioning about sharing, you can choose to show this UI or default these values. But right now we can say, well, I don't want this document to be shared with experienced users, but I do want it to be shared with anybody that has access to this account, right? That would be this enhanced record sharing. So you can kind of default those values and make sure that they make sense for whatever person is using this UI. And there can be a lot of different iterations of an upload. Like, it's not what you see here is all we have. It's based on configurations and where it's used and things like that. So you could have one for every business unit. You could have different ones for different profiles, whatever floats your boat, right?
I'll say here too, really quick, Kyle, you know, for me, when I was first, you know, assessing any tool, I'm always thinking about what's the level of effort of implementing this? Is this going to drive up my cost? Right, like you had mentioned in terms of the large migrations or the off-platform migrations, Andrew. And these are all Lightning components. So as soon as you know, receive enablement from Kyle and really know what you're trying to do and feel confident in the tool, the configurations and dropping these components onto the Lightning pages take minutes. So I haven't found that, you know, it's the juice worth the squeeze, definitely, as that saying goes, for the wins that you'll get on the UI side versus the level of effort it takes for you or your team to implement.
That's a pretty good segue, Sarah, too. Go ahead, Andrew.
In regards to the enhanced record access, is that configurable, or is that strictly going by the implicit sharing rules?
So that's a good question. That's one of the ones that we don't get asked very often, because most people don't delve deep enough into what that means. I even had to delve really deep to learn what that meant. But we're talking about the enhanced sharing is a feature of the content document link. So there's a field on the content document link called share type, I think, and it can either be inherited, it can be viewer, or it can be collaborator. And we're specifically referring to that value. Inherited means that if you have access to the record, you have access to the file, right? Viewer means that you can view the file but you can't interact with it. It's the same as inherited, but you can't actually interact with the file. You can only see it. So it means you couldn't change tags, couldn't upload a new version or whatever. And then collaborator is a little bit more of a confusing one. It's like a co-owner. So sometimes when you're sharing with certain other users that are also system administrators and things like that, there's collaborator, but we only let you choose between inherited or viewer here. But the question you're asking is a good one too, because we generally say to people, go for inherited, because inherited is going to follow your inherent sharing rules. Because if you have someone who can see this account, they can see the file, right? And if they can't see the account, they can't see the file. And it's as simple as that. And after that, you can do sharing, you can do content document links against other objects to make it so if they can't see the account, but they can, well, this is a little bad example because of the way that the sharing works here. But let's say, for example, you had a custom opportunity object, right? And someone could see the deal or the custom opportunity object, but they couldn't see the account. You could create a new public or a new content document link between this file and that opportunity to share it to that specific group of people who can see that deal, or that opportunity or deal. So you can automate all that too, so you don't really have to go in and do all that on your own. But the sharing as inherited is generally what we say, so it does follow all of the sharing rules that you have, painstakingly taken the time to build in your work.
Yeah, I think that's the thread that I'm after, is the ability to share with a group or with roles and subordinates.
Sure.
Instead of sharing simply based on the object rules.
So if you, the one thing I'll say too is the sharing based off of object is going to be your base level visibility, right? Because unless you're going to come back here to this like files section and expect them to be seeing it here, the context is generally for most things in Salesforce. Again, we're people who work in multiple verticals and ecosystems, so it's always different. But generally speaking, like we've seen in like the not-for-profit space, grants, like I said, grant application is like your context set where you have like anybody that could see that grant application internally could see the files on that grant application, and so on and so forth. You could also share that with other folks. But if they can't see the grant application, then or any kind of object to go to, you kind of have to rethink how you're going to see the file. And which is, we do have an answer to. I just wanted to talk about that kind of like level of context. Is if you remove the context of the object, you have to kind of rethink where you're seeing those things. But that's why we have a file search as well, so that you're going to see a file viewer here, but it's going to be a little bit more global. So right now, if I like search, you can see like we're seeing like accounts here. These are all the files that I have access to, right? Whether that be through another object or just from a content document link, these are all the files I have access to. So this is more of like a global view. It's kind of like this view that you see out of box, but it's more functionally specific to me as a user, right? And this entity sharing is kind of the crux of all of that. So this is something you can do from the file page layout, but what we're trying to do here is make it a lot easier. So if you did need to share this with a specific user, and again, this is the manual version, so bear with me while I kind of explain the addition to show you multiplication kind of idea. Mm-hmm. So if I wanted to share this with like an opportunity, I could say like, I want to find something that has Burlington in it. That's a common one. So it's going to show me all the things that might be related to Burlington or whatever, I type in here, and I could create that right off the bat. I could make it so anybody that sees this opportunity can see this file, right? Gotcha. So on and so forth. That's great. But if you're trying to do like automated sharing and security, this is a little cumbersome. So the other thing we offer as part of our package is a set of platform events that lets you do triggered flows off of the file stuff. So content document link, and content version. And that's where we talk about kind of automation. Like you could see when a file was created against a object, or if I was created with a specific tag, and then create more sharing based off of what you want to happen when that file is created. So for example, doing a process automation here, and we look at some of the like platform event triggered flows that we have for this. Are you familiar at all with platform events? Have you messed with them at all or used them? Or is this kind of the first time you're hearing about them?
I am marginally familiar.
Okay. So enough that when I say it, you kind of understand that like a flow can be triggered off it and all that stuff, but not enough to like understand how to do it from scratch.
Right.
Okay, cool. So let's see. Do I have any in here? I think I do. Oh, there it is. Okay. So this one, for example, this is a file viewer content document link platform event flow. What it's going to do is it's going to basically our package is going to fire a platform event every time a content document is created or deleted. And I think you can also do updated, but that's really not something that can actually happen. So we can't target that. But so what we're going to do is we're going to get the content version. We're going to take a look at what object it could be. So this could be where you say, oh, anything that's uploaded against an opportunity, anything that's uploaded against an account, or user, etc. Right? That could be something where you're taking in information about what the object, what the file is associated to, and go do actions. So right now what we're doing is saying, if we get a file that's uploaded against a user, go get the user, and if they have a contact, because this is a portal use case where we're trying to share a resume that a user uploaded with their contact in Salesforce for like our HR job posting use case, it basically would attach the resume to the contact in addition to the thing that they applied for. That way we could see in the future like what resumes they've already put up, and if they're consistent, you know, to make sure to monitor things. The other way we've used this too is to say, like, if somebody who's, again, I keep going back to grant applications, so if that's not relevant, stop me now, because it's my biggest use case for not-for-profits. It's like my not-for-profit. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, what?
Definitely relevant. Yeah.
Okay. So like we could do something there where like if somebody in the community, if you have a community for grant applications, they upload, you know, their like IRS 900 form, you could share that internally with people that would need to see it right away. Like you could say, here's my team. I'm going to go get my users based off of, you know, maybe their role or their profile ID or something like that, right? You have all these options here where you can go, you know, figure out what users you want to get. Then you have a list of users and you can loop over them to just go basically create the sharing for that list of users. I'm using Flow pretty heavily here because it's usually what like a lot of people don't want to do development. You could do all this with development, but I'm more of a Flow person. I'm a Flow head, so I want people to be able to like see that it's Flow possible. Do you guys use Flows at all? Do you work with Flows at all?
Yep, I'm not a developer, so I primarily use Flow.
I'm in the same boat. Like you put code in front of my face, I can probably read it and maybe figure out what it can do. But if you, as soon as you ask me to like change it, I'm gonna pass it off to somebody who's way better at it than me.
Yeah.
So
this answers Andrew's question, going back to his original question of like, you know, going and retrieving a set of users based on Andrew Yu's role, or possibly profile, or even a custom tag that you had. So if you have, let's say, your grant application, when a 990 is uploaded, you want to exclusively share that 990 with anybody tagged as an executive director. The criteria that you can see through, or that you could execute through this flow, would absolutely allow you the ability to do that. Even send them a notification on top of it. Hey, XYZ nonprofit had their 990 uploaded, and here's a link to see it. Yeah, get that right in their inbox if that was safe, of course, for email delivery and the document at hand. But the platform event would allow you to do that.
Sorry, I just noticed that we had Brandy and Kathy actually join as well. So it's nice to virtually meet you two. This is kind of more of an open forum lunch and learn. So if you guys have interacted with files, feel free to jump in and ask questions. Don't worry so much. We're not going to have like a Q&A, so just feel free to interrupt either of us. Just as another context setting, we're talking about files and how our product helps you utilize files in Salesforce better. FirmWorks is a company that's worked with a lot of consulting agencies to try to come up with, you know, solutions that we find a lot of different consulting agencies have with Salesforce, and create like, you know, products that support that stuff. So yeah, sorry, I wanted to reiterate that when you have some new people. So. And I've allowed you guys to talk to if you want to just hop on and do anything. But yeah. Andrew, does that make sense as far as what Sarah said, though?
Yeah, that definitely answers my question and adds a helpful context to it.
So, Brandy or Kathy, do you guys use files at all? Have you experienced have you experienced files in Salesforce, or have you kind of strayed away from it like most smart people would do?
On and off. I actually, I work with multiple clients, so as a virtual admin, and one of them is looking at uploading files for certificates and W-9s and numbers that I don't understand. But and this came through, and I was like, oh, this might be something interesting that might work for them, especially with the W-9s. I understand they're, you know, a tax for, I live in Canada, so I don't understand all the IRS numbers. I apologize.
Yeah, I live in the United States and I don't understand them, so you're good.
But yeah, the concern is uploading W-9s, but not letting only letting certain people have access to them. So this looks like an interesting thing because I was like going, I don't know how I'm going to do this in Salesforce otherwise.
Were you here for the part where I was talking about object inheritance and sharing rules out of your org, or did you not hear that part?
I think I got some of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like when I was talking to Andrew about that sharing section, it was mostly like the way that files are typically gonna follow suit is you can see the object, you can see the files that are associated with the object. And by associated, I mean are shared or are connected via this thing we call a content document link, or like yeah. So right now this file is visible to this user, meaning it will show up wherever this user can see basic files. It'll show up when this user, if this user has access to this Burlington account, if a user has access to the Burlington account, or if they have access to the opportunity, right? So there's like a bunch of different ways we've thought about security outside of security, if you will, meaning like how can we fake out Salesforce to make it so only groups of people can see things. Some of the ideas we got were like suggesting maybe a security object, and you would basically connect the file to that security object, and only certain people would have sharing rules to that object. You could also just mass create content document links for users specifically so they can see the files that they want wherever they're going to go. So there's a lot of options there. We usually we don't want to dictate what's easiest or best for the consulting partners to do. So we generally kind of give options like that, and then the people can choose what their clients want. You know, we're not going to, we could tell you what the best practice is if you want, but usually there's people have preferences, if that makes sense.
Oh no, like I said, I work with multiple different ones and everyone has a different opinion on everything. So yep,
Exactly.
totally get it.
Kyle, will you show Kathy the upload, like back to an account? So Kathy, if your client is, uploading a W-9 or any tax document on a particular account record. So in this case, they'd have a W-9 for Dickinson PLC. That upload button that Kyle just pressed, so the flagship product of FirmWorks or feature of FirmWorks Files allows your clients to tag the type of document so they can later retrieve it. So on that type side, on step one, if you can envision that, the tax document type, and that would say IRS 990 and W-9 and a couple of different other options, right, that they might be storing. That would allow them to tag their document and then upload, so drag or drop. Where you see right there, they can drag their files pretty easily into that area. And Kyle's demoing that they can, if there's an expiration date on a tax document or what year, right, was the W-2 for, reporting, because not only, right, can you flagging the files with that information, but then what he hasn't shown yet is you can actually report on that information. So if your client at the end of the year said, I need a list of all I-9s that I uploaded this year for accounts in Texas, File Viewer, FirmWorks Files allows you to report on the data that you've tagged the files with, and it's accessible when you upload. So it's really easy to get to.
Yeah, and that's one of our biggest pain points we've heard people say is like, how do I find files that are there? Like, or how do I identify what's missing or what needs to be added and things like that. So I can show that in just a sec. I do want to make sure, Brandy, if you have anything that you'd like to add or have any questions about files or just generally thoughts to vent about files if you've already used them, feel free to.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm mostly here just to listen and learn.
Okay.
We do use files in a pretty basic way. We have a custom agreement object that we upload, copies of the contracts to. Some of this functionality actually might be great for our legal team. They certainly complain about not being able to find exactly what they're looking for.
I used to work with contract lifecycle management, so I'm familiar with the legal team struggle.
Yeah, we're also hoping in 2024 to get a new contract management tool in place. We have a very clunky manual process at the moment. And then I think our philanthropy department certainly uploads a lot of stuff, but I don't know as much about that. We have a specific admin for our philanthropy department, but I may share this with her.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. As a whole entire webinar, I could talk to you about contract lifecycle management and file FirmWorks files. But yeah, so if you want to follow up and talk about that specifically, I'd be more than happy to walk you through like how something like this can help with a
Okay.
process like that. But for the moment, like I think all the two of the threads and this one Sarah mentioned as well, reporting seems like it's going to be important for finding things. So you can find things two ways, right? If you know what tags you're looking for, you can find them here. Like this is kind of more like the visualization UI we have, which is our file viewer component. The best part about the components that we offer is that we try to let them be used everywhere. You're seeing them right now on a page layout and in the homepage tab or an app tab, but they also work in communities and experiences and in flows as well. So we kind of wanted to make it so anywhere you need to use them, they're functional. The circling back, Andrew, to the grant use cases, those are a lot of flow components, like where we say, did you upload this file? You can't continue unless you upload this file. What have you already uploaded? Here's what you see you've uploaded. Things like that are really nice when you're using a flow, especially in an experience. So, but moving on forward, we have something that will just basically show you, like Sarah said, files that fulfill a certain criteria. So this is a UI where we're showing files. This is kind of a weird place to have it on the account because this is looking at multiple accounts, but you can put something like this on a homepage tab and say like, here's all of our accounts that have an NDA. That's the report we're looking at right now, is like ones that have an NDA. And the reason I know that is because I set it up. I'll get into more in depth later about what we're doing there. You can also download the files and the data from this report as well. In addition to that, on the right-hand side, you can also see that we're showing like basically what we consider to be like validation or what are we calling that word? Why can't I remember it right now? Compliance. There we go. So we see here that our account has an NDA, and we can see that NDA, at least it's got one NDA here, but it doesn't have an SOW. So we are giving guidance on people on how to do that, create an SOW and how to upload it with this YouTube video. This is all part of our component that you can see here. Our component basically is referencing a report we built. The report is called Accounts with SOWs from last year. It's got success it's got behaviors that are associated with a record being returned. And we have whole messages that are rich text so we can embed things. Now, then I know the question is, what the heck? How do I build this report? What is this report? What am I doing? Don't worry, we're going to definitely talk about it, because that's a really big part of this architecture here. So Sarah mentioned this earlier too, but the kind of like 5-minute experience of FirmWorks files is you can install it from the App Exchange and use it almost immediately. The only thing that you'll need to do is create some tags on that object, on that content document object or content version object, if you want to be able to tag stuff, but it'll already pull files in based off of their content document links and their relationships without doing any of the kind of tagging architecture. So you can at least see stuff in a better way. If you want to start utilizing things like configurations, you would basically go in here and you can use the configurator builder that we built to build a configuration. What a configuration represents is basically a set of fields, tags, I'll say, view elements and other aspects of a component, so you can reference it later. So right here you can see if we click on our file viewer component, our flagship component, it's referencing this account configuration, which has a bunch of things preset, so you can actually just use this anywhere and it'll be the same as it is everywhere else. Alternatively, or in addition to, you can actually build reports. And I have to say this as like kind of like legalese disclaimer, at least for my own brain. The reports that we're talking about are compliance reporting and auditing reporting. It's our own thing that we have come up with that is not associated with Salesforce reporting at all, because they don't allow us to really interact with that. And we can't drop our own components in a dashboard. So we've come up with our own set of stuff to basically report on files. And reporting is a loaded term in Salesforce, so I have to be really clear about what we're doing here is not something you can actually run as a Salesforce report. It's just going to give you the information that that report could never give you, a files report can never give you, because the file content report right now is very, I'll say, lame. It doesn't do a lot and it doesn't really function very well. But for the sake of kind of the use case we were talking about with Sarah and Kathy with the like tax documents, right? The first thing we would do when we're building reports, select which object. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Andrew. Sorry.
Yeah, the reporting and I believe you mentioned dashboards. Is that license limited for view?
No, so we do not do stuff with out of box like Salesforce reports and dashboards. We have our own components that are supposed to
Right.
represent those things. It's all part of the main package.
So we haven't discussed the licensing structure, but would the ability to view those reports and dashboards be limited to folks that had a license, or is it org wide?
It is license per license, but depending on the size, we have done in the past org wide stuff and come up with prices for that. So specifically with our like experience use cases, generally, when it's over like, I don't know, I don't want to give a number because I don't really know off the top of my head, but when it's a lot of users that are going to be using something, we generally start talking about org wide licenses. But the pricing structure, we weren't really going to talk about, but we can right now really quickly, is $9 per user per month, non-for-profit discount of 25% from that price. So, and then the other two products are, I'm not going to talk about notes because it's just going to get confusing, but our Geo product's free. So if you ever want to mess around with our Geo product, it's free to install and I can give you the links and stuff. But our, FirmWorks files is $9 per user per month. If it gets to a point where you're concerned about pricing, it's just this thing where you like ask us about it and we can probably talk about worldwide licensing as opposed to just make it a non deal, or we'd rather understand the use case and understand if it's a good fit. I'm giving you like the boilerplate like ISV response, but I'd rather understand if it's a good fit or not before we kind of like get canceled on price. But it's the team of us, it's me, a former product manager, Jordan, a developer, and then we have one salesperson. So at the very least, you get two representatives who aren't part of a sales team to be working on it with you, if that helps.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Is there anything you want to add to that, Sarah, or like as far as your experience with
recap that the report, like anything that you see here is only included for licensed seats. And obviously one of the first components that Kyle showed that replaces the files related list. So even if someone isn't licensed, they would still have the ability, you'd still be able to drop the standard lightning related list for files, and they, it's not going to hide or restrict that native related list. They would be able to use that, but you can clearly see the difference between the two. So
Gotcha.
So as far as this reporting section goes, I guess, now that that's a lot of information I just shoved on you and then I'm sequituring to something else. Brandy or Kathy, do you have any questions about the thing that Andrew asked, or do you want to see what happens with this reporting stuff?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Cool. So the first thing we'll do when we create a file report is give it context. What object do we want to search for files on? This is all the objects in your org, just like a report, Salesforce report. You would pick the object you want. There's no like cross reporting at the moment, so it's just one object at a time, not like accounts with opportunities or anything like that, because that's just not the way that this UI works. You can also add filters for these. So if you wanted to say like Sarah and Kathy, you had mentioned, or in your conversation, things that were, closed last year, I guess maybe opportunity is a better one for a date field, but you can do any field on that object as well. So maybe we do like is active still, or the one I like to do is industry. Here, industry, just industry. There it is. So like you can have any number of filters here that you want, and you can do filter sets. So you can be like these accounts or these accounts and these accounts. So there's a lot of functionality here. If you ever want to view the syntax, you can always just click this and it'll show you what you're currently looking for. But that's the first section, is like, what objects do we want to look for? What records do we want to find find if files exist or do not exist for? Second section is kind of telling it what files you're looking for. So in this case, we might say something like, I want to get the I want to find all accounts that that may or may not have an NDA, right? Or maybe I want to find all accounts that have an NDA that is NDA and it's not expired. So I could add a new filter here and say that expiration date is like less than, or is less than or equal to today. And there's like a little QA thing over here if you want to know what you can put here. You can just put stuff like that. It follows all the SOCWL rules, so that would basically be where you be limited. Sorry. So right now we're going to say I want to find all contracts that are NDAs that have an expiration date in the past, basically. And we can say I want to find ones that have those documents or do not have those documents. So if we want to find ones that are out of date, we probably want to find ones with documents that exist in the past. So we can click Run Report. And then we're going to see a list of the accounts that have an NDA that is expired, right? Alternatively, we could do something like I want to see all accounts that don't have any NDA on them, right? So I can click Run Report, and then now I'm looking for consulting, so I'm going to actually remove this filter just so we can see some results. But if I run this report now, we're going to see all of these accounts do not have NDAs. That's that. So like that at the base level is like what we're talking about with reporting, is like seeing where files do and do not exist in order to make sure that we are compliant and we're doing the things that our org is supposed to do, and we can basically know what's not there and what is there. Does that make sense from the perspective of like basic reporting? Because there's a lot more we can do after this. I just wanted to make sure we're good on understanding like what we're actually showing here.
Yep, makes sense to me.
Cool.
Me too.
Okay. I think the big. Oh, go ahead.
We're getting close to the
yeah.
end. If we want to open it up for any Q&A, or if you had a closing topic that you wanted to cover.
I do. I want to talk about one more thing here with reports, and then I'm going to get into like what our partner relationship stuff looks like. So like what it means to work with us and the benefits of that. So the last thing I want to talk about here at the very least is that you can schedule these reports to run, and then you can like have automation action on them. So you can click a report that you've built. You can basically set a schedule for it to run weekly, daily, monthly, whatever, right? And then you can build a flow that will basically receive information about all of these accounts and go chatter post that this needs an NDA, or go, create a task for someone that there's documents missing. There's a lot of action you can take here. It's not just visualization. It's also trying to be more proactive about making sure that you're in compliance, or that your records that you are, saying are functionally useful in your org are actually functional. So again, we don't really have a lot of time to get into that, but if you ever want to follow up, just email me or the sales@firmworks.com or info@firmworks.com. I get firmworks.com, and I'd be more than happy to walk through more of those use cases with you. All right, so I'm going to jump back to our presentation really quick and just talk about like partner benefits. So right now we are kind of a small company, but we do want to make sure that if you are going to, utilize our product, that you as specifically consulting partners are supported. So we're going to offer 10 free internal licenses to anybody that is interested in kind of getting to know the product or wants to work with us. So if you think this is a good use case for your internal team, or you want to try to demo this in one of your demo orgs, just let us know and install from the App Exchange and let us know what org you want the 10 free licenses in. So we're more than willing to give consulting partners 10 free licenses to just use the product on a day-to-day basis, and let us know what you think. We also have a direct access link. I can't spell access right, but we have one to the basically, if you're a partner and you're working with us, you'll get a more direct access link to our support. So you can just submit a support ticket through our special partner link instead of using the normal means for that. We also offer a lot of implementation assistance. Jordan and I really like working with consulting people and people who are doing the down and dirty day-to-day work, because y'all are the ones that have to use this stuff and work with it. And it's great for us to get to know you and understand what you're doing with the product in case we need to build more support for you. So if you ever need help, let us know. We like doing that, and we've implemented a lot of people with it before, just like Sarah can probably speak to. And then finally, we're coming out with a partner resource site soon. So you'll basically get specific resources for partners, like white papers and any kind of thing like that that will help you understand like when we use the product and how it works and how to configure it. So also, thank you. It takes time out of your day to come to these things, and I truly appreciate and respect the amount of effort that you're taking out of your day to be here. And I'm glad that you came, and I'm glad that I got to talk to all of you about our product.
Oh, thank you, Kyle. Are there any last questions that either of us can answer for you guys today?
Yeah, this one might be a reach, but is there any file compression capability?
Not out of box with our product, but it's something that we have on our roadmap as part of a like external package, because right now our app's completely native. So we don't have any kind of things that require you to do a function that wouldn't normally be able to be facilitated by Apex.
Sure.
But we really want to work into these whole like file scanning, compression, archival stuff. So it's on the roadmap, but not currently.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked about it, because now I can push Jordan into doing it.
Yeah, both compression and archiving would definitely be pluses, I think.
We are working with we're working with the Serum firm with a client right now who's interested in that. So I would expect it to actually become something sooner rather than later.
And a couple of last minute things, that I look for when we're looking at partners or, App Exchange products is the footprint of the application. As Kyle mentioned, it's native, right? So there's no external communications outside of Salesforce with these files. There is zero schema that's going to create any impact inside of the org from an object perspective. Really, it's only the custom fields that you guys are configuring on your own on the content document object. That's the extent of the footprint. Outside of how many tabs are there, Kyle? Maybe 5. File search, configuration.
But as many as you want, because we don't actually like, we ship with like, yeah, you're right. Sorry, we ship with file search, file configuration, and file removal.
Here's 5.
Yeah.
So that was really important for me, because when making the recommendation, I knew that those are questions that our more advanced clients would be having. Kyle already mentioned the cost, the $9 per user per month. It's a very, very reasonable price for the features and functionality this app gives us almost immediately out of the box, as he mentioned. And on top of that, layering the fact that your consultants can figure out or being able to really get their hands on this application within an hour of enablement. And so I think that was a big sell for us of the amount of impact that the application can have. We can not only enable our consultants really quickly to configure this, but we can then enable our own clients to configure it, because it's no code. It's all basically through the Lightning pages and that point and click setup. So that was a big thing.
Yeah. In addition to that too, I think it's important to note that unlike a lot of other apps you install, you'll still have all your tagged files afterwards. It's not our files, they're your files, and the fields you build are your fields. It's just our, like I mentioned and like Sarah mentioned, it's all components. So we're just trying to uncover stuff for you. We're not trying to replace the files in Salesforce. They work, they just don't work that well. We just wanted to give you a lot of tools to be able to use them better. But at the end of the day, if you choose that FirmWorks files isn't actually what you needed, or is too expensive, you'll still have all the tags, you'll still have all the files. It's just might be harder to find and utilize them.
Oh, you are. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah, thanks again for coming, everybody. And I'll probably be reaching out to you in the next day or two just to make sure to follow up. If you want those 10 licenses, just shoot me an org ID where you want me to extend them out, and yeah, play around with it. Let us know what you think and tell us what can be better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody. Have a great
Thanks.
day. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having
Nice
us.
to meet all you.